Well, I saw John Laurinaitis on the caller ID, and so I was happy to hear from him because he's a friend, and I figured there would be something exciting on the other end. And he told me that Vince asked him to reach out and ask me if I'd be interested in being inducted into the Hall of Fame 2021. And so I said, of course, I would be honored, and boom, boom, there you go.
There you go. So let's go back. Your relationship with WWE started in 2001, properly. Your full time run there. So ECW closes its doors. You sign with the WWF. Do you remember those initial talks with? I guess it would be JR at the time about coming in, and what do you remember about those?
So in 2001, I made the call to Paul Heyman because I knew that I was sought after, and I didn't really want to go there at the time, but there wasn't any other options, at least if you wanted to be a TV wrestler in the United States. But I called Paul and said, "Hey, I'm ready to talk to WWF." And so he said, "Okay, great. Let me call so and so. I'll call you back." I had to meet with JR first because I had a reputation for being hard to get along with, based on the fact that last time I was with the WWF, I walked out, and refused to do stuff they wanted to do. There's a big story behind that, but I had to meet with JR. Meeting went well. What I remember about it is that JR was telling me that I would slow my style down. He was saying, all those crazy flips you do and diving out to the floor, you're not going to be able to do that on our schedule. Every night after night. He said you're going to want to change that up. So for years, whenever I see JR, I would always bring that up. Still have the last couple of times I've seen him. Hey, Jim, remember when you told me that I wouldn't be able to handle doing my style, every night and stuff. Once I came in, I have to change. And he said, well, what you did was unprecedented. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. He said, how could I have known? No one had done that before, which, is also an honor. To go back, in case before you ask, just in case you're wondering, the reputation of being hard to get along with came because I did the invasion angle with ECW, where we came into WWF, and we were there to make a name for ourselves, get exposure, shine a light on a much smaller company that didn't have the stage that WWF did. So it was a really good opportunity for us, as long as it went our way. So I was excited about it, and I was set up to fail, though. I had no idea that Vince thought that I was joining WWF. I had no idea. Paul put it in our heads that we're not wanted there. Watch your back. Don't know how long this angle is going to last. As soon as something sounds funny, just say the word, we'll leave. And when it came to that spot where, dude, I don't feel comfortable about this, no support. He's like, you want to go? We'll go. I'm like, well, talk to me about this, and he was just like, you say the word. And I was like, I don't want to do it, so I ended up talking to Vince for the first time, even though I'd been there for several weeks. And that's when I found out, that he thought that I was actually there to join WWF. He said, I never would have put you on my television if I didn't think you were staying. And I was like, what? Because I looked at Paul. Paul had said the exact opposite. When I looked at Paul, he would just look the other way. He was talking to, I think, Bruce Pritchard in the corner. Is it Bruce or JR? I can't remember which one he was talking to in the corner over there when I'm reaching for a tag, and I was just like, wow, that's that's just the way it went. So we went home that night, and that's why I had to meet with JR afterwards. Meeting went well, and the whole run was pretty awesome.
And was it weird for you that you'd just been working for Paul Heyman, obviously running ECW, and now he's a colleague almost rather than a boss?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't like that at all. You know, I considered Paul a friend. The ECW was folded. There was no more. It wasn't like it was just, you know, instant, like one day this and then that. You know, I knew that he had gone to the WWF. We all knew. You know, I was surprised at first, like, oh man, he's that's gotta hurt, you know, for him to. But I know he wouldn't have done it unless it was the right decision for him to do. So I knew that. It's just you know you have expectations that always get in the way of sometimes just seeing the moment, you know. But no, I mean when I went there, you know, he was still a friend, still looking out for my best interest. The only agent I would say that was looking out for my best interest the whole time I was there, I believe.
I mean, it's that classic angle from the July 9th, 2001 Raw where the ECW guys invade. And obviously, the week before, they were doing the WCW invasion. It didn't really work out. When did they let you know, okay, you're going to be, coming in as ECW? You guys are going to be coming in to sort of help save this invasion story.
I showed up in Atlanta for the at least that's I remember it being Atlanta, so
Yeah,
you know, I've been saying that for years. Okay.
yeah.
Um I had no idea. I thought that I was there to start like a whole new chapter. I didn't know if I was gonna be RVD or if they were gonna come up with something stupid, you know, to call me, make me a character. I was there to see what was going on that day, my first day of booking, and I was surprised to see Tommy Dreamer there, and he threw me an ECW shirt to put on, and I was totally surprised, and I was so happy. I was like, "What? We get to represent? That's awesome!" Because instead of erasing my past, like I've seen them do with a lot of stars before, this would actually add depth to my whole story, and that was a lot more important to me. You know, all the time blood, sweat, tears that I'd put into my career, into my into my story. All of that was just going to keep on moving now instead of being ignored. So very cool.
And that when you guys came in, it did feel like ECW helped save that invasion storyline, and then there was the alliance, and kind of the TV those first few months really seemed to build up you and Austin as the storyline. There's the famous segment where Austin says, "The next guy that comes through that door, I'm going to beat the shit out of him," and then you walk in, and all of a sudden he's all friendly to you. And it felt like we were building to RVD versus Austin. Was that ever in the plans that was the program we were going to get?
Well, I did wrestle with Austin, you know, and we did that whole alliance thing, and I was the one in the alliance. I guess that was an issue with them, which a lot of that, a lot of that just happened. I was actually one day at TV. I had some kind of weird eye infection where my eye was all swollen up, and of course I was rubbing it, making it worse. And I had gone and laid down for a while in the dark because I had a really bad headache, trying whatever I could do to make it go away. And I got up, out of wherever the dark. I think it was in a press box because it was in the daytime. And now the show was starting, or people were there, or whatever. I remember going into the gym, and I was doing some exercises in the gym, and someone came in and they said, Rob, you're supposed to be in the ring." I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Dude, you're supposed to be in there right now. Like Steve Austin's out there calling you." That was a total complete shoot. Like I went out there, and he was like something about you need a damn watch. You can't be here. You know, that whole thing just happened, you know, which was funny. But I wrestled him. I have a win over Steve Austin. I don't know if there was going to be a really long angle. I'm not really sure exactly what the question is. You know, it wasn't. I didn't get to like main event WrestleMania with him or anything like that, unfortunately. But we did a little.
Yeah. Obviously, around that time as well was 9/11, the 20th anniversary recently, and WWE did the documentary about it. What do you remember about sort of, finding out what was going on, the tragic stuff that was going on, and then that show in Houston that you guys did 2 days later?
Yeah, Steve, um, sorry, Mike Awesome and myself were traveling together, and we woke up in San Antonio on 9/11. I had a hookup with a really nice Marriott hotel. They had great food. Um, Mike woke me up in the morning, Rob, turn on your TV, we're under attack. Turned it on, trying to figure out what's going on. Saw the second tower going down. Um, we knew it was crazy, but we didn't comprehend how much the world had just been changed, and we thought that we were still going to have to wrestle that night. We didn't know. I mean, this was in New York City. We're in Texas, so we drove to Houston, and then of course we got stranded there for several days. I would have rather have been stuck in San Antonio because I had the hookup with a nice king size suite and all that stuff. But we didn't know. Like we were just on hold. When we finally did go forward, it wasn't like a lot of notice. It wasn't like on Monday they said, "Hey, we're gonna do it Friday." It was kind of just like, what's going on. And I think WWE was anxious, to get on with it. And I remember thinking, it's a horrible idea. Like if these terrorists really want to strike America in its heart, what better way than a stadium full of people live on TV watching pro wrestling, which is as American as it gets. So I was thinking it's quite likely that we're not going to be the safest out, out out in front of people. And I thought that, and also when we flew home, Teddy Long was the first one to fly home. I thought he was crazy. I couldn't believe he did it. Um, we drove out. We drove out of there. A lot of people did, and for the longest time, it was something that went through your mind every time you got on an airplane. You think like, man, I don't know for sure if it's gonna land where I want it to or not. I've
Yeah.
told this story several times, but I remember Lance Storm telling us that he would kiss his kids goodbye every day when he would leave the house, and not really know if he was going to make it home or not. And we would eyeball anybody, that had a towel on their head or whatever. It was just, paranoia hyped, and not a comfortable feeling at all. Like we take it for granted how comfortable stuff is when the problems are on other sides of the world, and we're able to just ignore it in our little bubble here.
So when you guys did the Alliance storyline, it lasted from July to November. Then they did the kind of WWF beats the Alliance thing. Did you think the Alliance storyline had more legs, or were you happy that they kind of had it come to an end and then moved on?
Hmm. I don't think that I really cared that much. Like I thought it was a good idea, but I don't remember thinking that it was going that well. That was that hot. I mean, they didn't seem to pick like the biggest ticket sellers from WCW for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part. And I wanted ECW to be able to branch away from WCW because that's where my heart was. But I understood it was a cool thing to be, lining up against WWE because that was the whole wrestling universe back then. So thought it was cool. I think that I kind of thought that it played out or whatever. I really enjoyed when I had the hardcore title, which may have been around this time. And of course, for that, I was just an individual competitor, all eyes on me. And I really preferred it that way.
Listen, a lot of people are praising you for how honest and poignant you came across in the Dark Side of the Ring on Plane Ride from Hell. When you watched it, what were your main takeaways from watching the whole thing?
Um, well, I already knew, like for 4 or 5 days, um, that it before I got a chance to see it, everyone else had, and so everybody was talking about it on social media. So I already knew um, the ramifications that the wrestlers faced. And most of the feedback said that I turned out looking good, like I had my moral compass pointed in the right direction. So I thought that was cool. Um, when I watched it, I remember thinking like, oh my God, like this must seem so crazy to normal people. Like right from the beginning when they were talking about wrestlers punching each other, jumping over the whatever, the seats or whatever they're doing. I just remember thinking like, yeah, normal people really have different lives than we do. This is crazy
Mhm.
actually for them to get a little sneak peek and then they fill the rest with their imagination.
Yeah.
So when I watched when I watched the whole thing, of course I was watching to see what I said because you don't have any idea you know of what the whole show is when they're just interviewing you. um, I talked to them for like an hour. If you add up all of my words together, I think it might be like a minute. So there's so much that they don't show, but people don't realize that. People that aren't in the entertainment business, they don't see it the same way. So I was thinking that the way that they cut it made it probably sound to people that don't listen hard enough like I said something I didn't say.
Mhm.
Specifically, I said there's a quote in there of me saying that I saw Rick Flair like crowding the flight attendant, and then the actual words of me saying trying to make her touch him and stuff. That was so incriminating because I had no idea the whole thing was going to be about his schlong and him doing the helicopter, whether he did or not, and the sexual thing. I didn't know about that at all. I was thinking more of like on the chest, like when someone thinks they're sexy and they're dancing, on you, like, oh, I know you
Mhm.
want to touch me, that like that vibe kind of
Yeah.
thing, which isn't the way it came across. So that I noticed that right away, and that kind of made me laugh, and I knew that. But I figured that some people, when you tell them that, then they would understand. But some people still don't. Like they think, oh, you're backtracking now and going back on what you said. And at a certain point, you got to realize that people are limited, and so I have to choose, who I'm gonna spend my energy on. When it comes to that, some people are impossible, but that's I know that that's the way that the media works. That's always they chose a narrative. They had so many different narratives. We all when they interviewed us, I'm sure we all said the same thing, which was like, God, that was so long ago. They barely remember. And then every time we'd say something, they would try to narrow it down. Like, was the airplane built like this? Because so and so said this, but most people are saying this. We're trying to find out. They did a lot of that, and then they chose to tell the story one way, and then used all the supporting footage they could. So, I that was a good production job.
Do you think that, based on how that episode played out, do you think it's going to put some wrestlers off from doing those sort of interviews again in case they come off? Because if you look at Tommy Dreamer, for example, he got a lot of heat for the episodes for how he came across. Do you think that's going to affect things, and how do you feel Tommy came across?
Um, that's a good question. I think no. I think I see where it could, and I've seen some fans want it on social media. Saying, "Why do you guys even do these interviews? These shows make you look bad." But I mean, I'm not mad at them at the show, and also, I think wrestlers for the most part are horrors. as Tracy Smothers, I'm wearing his shirt. He used to say, "We're all horrors, man." Um, I didn't know what he meant until I got an offer to do a bar mitzvah and was told all these other guys are doing it. But he's got a point there. So no, I mean, I don't expect wrestlers overall to have enough feelings to have integrity that outweighs business in that manner. I don't think that it validates that. In my opinion, I don't think that it will. Um, Dreamer he's got a lot of good karma coming to him too, because anyone that knows him, I think, will tell you that he's a good guy. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't, he's straight edge. So I think that this will blow over and people understand that that he chose his words, maybe in an unacceptable and inappropriate way, but how I feel he came across, defensive. He came across defensive, not as if he had to think about what he was being asked, but as if he had a position that he was stating. And you know the the thing the thing that I think today's culture and society doesn't realize, they allow themselves to be so shocked. They're so shocked all the time, and then they react with assumptions based on that. Did they not know that women like didn't even have a right to vote like in the 20s? And then did they not know that black people were segregated and until like the a few years before I was born, like in the I was born in 1970. A few years before that, black people were literally separated by law, different drinking fountains. I think that people somehow that are just living in today's moment, um, I think they're oversensitive in a lot of areas. It's good in certain areas where sensitivity has, been absent for too long. But overall, I mean, I think the best way to not get hurt inside is to not let yourself get so shocked by being more prepared with knowledge.
Yeah.
Look at history, look at the way things are changing and stuff. Everyone's so shocked, but I think that all of that is relevant when you talk about this episode.
I think one of the most fascinating parts of the episode is, you should be commended for sort of bringing it up in such a sort of honest way. Was you talked about, back in the day, wrestlers would H bomb, certain girls and stuff like that, and it feels like that situation has kind of stayed under the radar. Like it's not really come out as much as you would think that it would have. Why do you think that that particular thing? Because it goes to what you were just talking about, that people being shocked all the time. If people really looked into that, it's beyond shocking. Why do you think that that particular thing that used to happen has just kind of never really come out?
Hmm. Um, I think that's a great question. What I want to say is, I think, I mean, wrestling used to be a closed door society. Fans weren't even allowed inside. They'd get beat up if they went in the dressing room during my time. I mean, that's not that long ago, and it's evolved to where fans are exposed, now to wrestlers telling them ahead of time what they want to do in their match and crazy stuff. Now, they're killing the magic in that way, but there's still definitely what we could refer to as a Pandora's box that hasn't been opened yet. And I even feel, especially after this awakening and teachable moment that we had with this dark side of the ring episode, I realize now that I have so many stories where if I was to drop names, I mean, holy crap, their offenses would be jail time. Not that you could prove it now, many years later, I don't know that you would have enough supporting evidence, but I'm just saying, like, holy crap, like crimes, and I think that that people on the outside of the industry, um, they were kept out by the old school wrestlers, and now that those old school wrestlers are fading out, so are those stories. So the young guys don't know probably a lot of the stories that we do. They didn't experience it. We don't pass on those stories as if it was a great time. They're horrible stories. I think maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, I was listening to somebody's interview, and they were talking about how Mr. Fuji and I've heard someone else back this up too about how Mr. Fuji, for a practical joke, when he would have people over, he would kill the neighbors' dogs and then cook them and then feed them to the wrestlers when they were in town at his house and tell them like it was barbecue or something, and then get a laugh when they found out it was the dog. Like what kind of, first off, what kind of a sick fuck would do something like that? Second off, like what would real people outside of the business think if they knew that when they were seeing him on TV, you
Mhm.
know, tripping the wrestler's ankle when he comes by the rope? Like, there's a lot of crazy people that live by their own rules in the industry, and it's way better now. The guys aren't into partying, they don't drink pills, they're healthy because it's a very athletic style, thanks to RVD. If anything, they might be using cannabis to help with sleeping or injuries or whatever, thanks to RVD. They're going to live longer. The guys are definitely now treating it more, and it is also more of a friendly to everybody work environment, which is crazy. It was never intended to be that, I mean, people are shocked that the girls might have been harassed uh, or what you could call assaulted maybe by nowadays. But I bet if you ask every girl wrestler that's been in the business for 10 years or more, if she's seen the guys, either going in and out of the shower or at least in their underwear, it's like, I was taught early on that the girls were the boys, you know. Um, my friend Dango and I, who's no longer with us, when we were in USWA in 1991, we we saw and met Miss Texas, Jacqueline, the wrestler, and we said something about how cute she was, and Sabu said she's one of the boys. She said you don't fuck one of the boys. I was like, okay. He put that in me like early on, and obviously a lot of the wrestlers didn't have that same belief. But a lot of times the girls are they'll be like, if there's like one girls match, it is kind of the man's business. Not now, but it was. And sometimes women would have to change in the same dressing room or go off to the bathroom just to change and come out. But then they're with everybody walking around, with their shit hanging out and stuff. And um, I'm just saying that the standards of, and it's not like on purpose or anything, that then it is harassment. But I'm just saying, as part of their job, they're probably going to get a little bit of that here and there, and so that's something I don't think normal people can imagine putting themselves in that world. First off, and again, it's the shock value that I think fucks everybody up.
Yeah, for sure. I just got a couple of last questions for you. How has your relationship with Vince McMahon changed over the years? Because there's always this perception. You mentioned it earlier about RVD's tough to get along with, and it just feels like you're just probably someone who isn't political, and that's maybe why that moniker was given to you. But how did your relationship with Vince change over the years?
Um, I've always gotten along with Vince, overall. I was always like uncomfortable talking to him in a manner of just being intimidated and feeling awkward. He would always go out of his way if we're walking on the hallway to stop and shake my hand, and say, Rob, how you doing? Hey, Vince. But then I never knew what to talk about. You know what I mean? It'd be like, how's the weather? And it was like that, in a way that I was intimidated because he's Vince McMahon. He's like, most important man, that I'm ever going to meet here. And at the same time, what are we going to talk about? Am I going to tell him how I can't believe they have a girl in the Spider-Man outfit in the new series now? You know what I mean? It's in the comics or smoking or whatever. So it was like that. Now, now I feel like my whole mindset back then was so young, and I was still kind of fighting for validation, to be accepted and feel like my place in the universe was a place where people would quit telling me, you need more of this or you need less of that or whatever, because that always made me feel like I wasn't totally respected or that someone was looking down on me. That's how I always took advice. and it was hard for me to take, So now I look at Vince, as I still, he's still the same important as man, I'm able to express my feelings a little bit better than I was then, better with my wording and more comfortable with the fact that when I'm just honest and genuine, people appreciate it, So I'm able to just boom, say, man, Vince, you become like a father figure to me, and all your words that you say like stick with me, and I remember them, and I appreciate that, and um, that's about all I would say for a change. He's expressed his appreciation for me, and definitely I dropped the ball when I got busted for the cannabis with the WWE and ECW championships. I feel like I dropped the ball on his plans, and so coming back into the Hall of Fame and getting welcomed back into the family like that, that kind of is like a full circle for me, confirming that all of my efforts and the fans and my accomplishments, everything that I've done throughout my career could outweigh a little fuck up.
I do want to ask you quick.
Fuck up in Hanging Rock, Ohio.
I do want to ask you very quickly before you go. There's a famous clip on YouTube of you from Kayfabe Commentaries when you impersonated Shawn Michaels. Did you ever get any heat for that impersonation, which everybody seems to, get out at parties and show people?
I really never get heat for anything. I get asked all the time. There's rumors on the internet that RVD is getting heat. And it really doesn't, it never really happens, depending on your definition of heat anyway. But karma got me back, like I did that as a joke, making fun of him. But as my movie Headstrong, which you can see on Amazon, clearly exhibits, I had one particular little whack on the back of the head that gave me double vision, and it lasted for the better part of 2 years. I'm talking MRIs, CAT scans, vision therapy. I had to go to neurologists. I learned so much more than I ever thought I would about the brain, about long-term concussion damage, about CTE. And it's really relevant because most of my peers seem to die off either from suicide or from prescription overdoses. Both are always linked back to concussion damage from their wrestling. So when I released the movie, that really became like a mission of mine, because it's helping so many people spread the conversation, making everybody aware. And the doctors didn't know anything about it. I mean, they couldn't really tell me, like, is it going to go away? I think so. When? I don't know. No, but I mean, like, in a couple of weeks, in a few years, I don't know. Like, the studies were like so new. So anyway, that became something that I had to deal with. And so I say karma got me back. And now, when somebody wants to see me do the Shawn Michaels thing, I'm like, I'm glad that they laughed, that they got a giggle out of it. I feel like, of course, I was being a dick when I did it. Making fun of someone else, but also I think like that has to really suck, like I would have the worst headache if one of my eyes went in, because if it was just off a little bit off focus from the other one, that's enough to give you double vision, to headaches, all that. Now I test normal with all the eye tests and stuff, but there's still like certain patterns that'll trigger issues out of different perspectives of my eye and stuff. And it's not, it's not one of the fan favorite jokes that I'm particularly proud of. I told him at the Cauliflower Alley Club a few years ago, he was getting an award, and I went up and kind of tried to give him like my own version of apology. I just said, I hope you never saw anything on the internet about me being a dick, making fun of you, that that upset you or anything. And he just said, I don't take anything on the internet seriously. So
just my last question is, you're in the Hall of Fame now. Are we going to see RVD in the ring again in WWE? Are we going to see you maybe in AEW? What are the plans?
There are no plans to share with you. I don't know if you'll see me in a WWE ring or Any other ring. I still wrestle sometimes. It's not something I'm looking to do. There's not much that I really am like looking and trying to do. I just kind of do. I stay more busy than I want to be always. I've been saying that for years. I have my hands in like a million different pies. And I have some pretty good partners now. So got a lot of good stuff going on. Able to handle a lot of things like my CBD company, which is where I went after the movie Headstrong to further the studies of what we can do to protect the brain with cannabinoids. I've tried oxygen therapy, stem cells, everything, and cannabinoids have some serious potential. But anyway, I just wrestled just a few days ago in Philadelphia. I teamed with Bubba Ray Dudley. We wrestled against Matt Hardy and his partner, some dude that I can't remember his name, but
The guy from Private Party, yeah.
okay, yeah, and he was really good. But so anyway, yeah, a lot of people don't know because they don't see me on WWE or TNA or whatever. They think that I must be doing nothing, but not quite the case. I go with the flow. I I stay plugged into the universe. It guides me. It's very possible that you might see me on TV in a ring in the near future. I would say it's just as possible that you might not.